Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Blazer Metrics podcast. I am Nathan Bishop. I am joined again by Larry, aka TB Pup, from the road on his phone. So we are making do with what we have.
The never-ending road trip continues, and it's got 2 more days in a car. So, I do believe that Joe Cronin is tracking when I'm unavailable. So
Yeah.
the Dame trade was while I was on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
The Jrue trade was while I was in the middle of my event, and I'm driving in a car the next 2 days. So, and media day is Tuesday. So pretty much guaranteed from sometime tomorrow morning to early afternoon, Brogdon will be gone if I track this correctly.
I thought it was tomorrow. Isn't it on Monday? I might be wrong.
Well, I'm not. So I've heard two different things. I've heard that like the Leagues was tomorrow and the Blazers was Tuesday, and then someone else said no, the Blazers was tomorrow. So I'm very out
might
of
be
it,
right.
and I'm on minimal sleep, and you can see old windows of the Luxor pyramid in the background.
Yeah,
and it's raining.
Normally I really don't care about media day. I mean, it's just guys giving like platitudes about working in the off season and blah blah blah. Honestly, I think the only thing that's going to be super spicy about media day is Joe Cronin's press conference. That is going to be because that will be the media's first opportunity to ask him about the trades and the Chris Haynes article, and I know that the Chris Haynes article is going to come up. So,
and can reporters boo another reporter? Pretty much, if any question that Aaron Fentress asks,
they won't.
Not necessarily. You might ask an actual non-snarky gotcha question, but the over/under. I know which.
It's coming. No, it's coming. I mean, Chris Haynes won't be there. He already said. So I actually listened to his podcast last night that he has with Mark Stein. And it was basically the live version of that article. And he didn't really share anything. Okay. He didn't really share anything new. But the funny thing is he kept referring to we. And I'm like, we? Who's we? Are you and Dame in a relationship now? Like, I didn't realize that. That's interesting. But it was a lot of we's and
sponsored by an old video game company. I mean, what's going on there?
I don't know, but he said he's going to be at the Milwaukee Media Day, so at least we don't have Chris Haynes lurking around Portland. But
of course he will. That's where Dame is, and that's his number one source, and that's fine. I mean, good. Get it behind us, get it over with. Address the press conference. See who's actually going to be there. I've heard varying reports of who's actually going to show up and who's not.
Yeah,
and let's start this awesome chapter with who we have and who may still be yet to be moved.
Yeah.
But what a transformation in a matter of
year and a half.
4 days.
Well, a year and a half, really. But yeah, for the last 4 days has been drastic. But I was going to say, though, like, since Joe took over, the only player that remains is Anthony Simons. I mean, that is the only guy still left from the Neil Olshey era. So almost cleared that stink off the organization.
Well, look at overall what has happened. You have so much more length, so much more defensive capability. You're so much younger. You have some cap flexibility coming, depending on who ends up where. You're so much more athletic. Now you're going to suffer probably so many more losses. But is it really going to be that much worse than the last 2 years where we had veterans?
Are we, though? I mean, are we going to be that bad now? Because, I mean, this team has a lot more talent now, probably more than it did last year, minus Dame. But
I got my over a couple weeks ago when I was down here, and that number has gone up a little bit, so I'm feeling pretty happy about that.
Yeah, well, so first of all, I just wanted to get the Jrue trade, and I actually logged in and gave my thoughts really quick earlier today because it broke and just a lot to talk about. So I did a really quick show this afternoon, just kind of talking about my thoughts. But here was the trade. Jrue goes to Boston. Obviously, he couldn't be paired with anyone anyway, so it was just Jrue from Portland, and we got back Malcolm Brogdon. Robert Williams the third, right? He's the third, and then we got
He's all numbers. He's all numbers. He's the Time Lord. So he's
Time
1,
Lord.
2, 3, 4 to infinity.
Yeah, there you go. And then we got a 2024 Golden State Warriors pick that is top 4 protected, and we got a 2029 Boston Celtics pick that is not protected at all. So, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts? How did you feel about this trade?
Well, it's where I thought that he was most likely to end up, given the teams that we talked about the other day. It seemed like they were. I mean, Boston had to make a move, and either Boston or Miami, but Miami still didn't have the parts, and didn't seem like they wanted to engage. And their media's throwing temper tantrums down there, and it's like, well, okay, fine. It seemed like it was most likely to be Boston. Now it was what was going to be included, and it sounds like Portland went back to Boston a couple times. I read something that originally Williams was not included, and then he was added to get the deal done. And I think part of that is, I'm guessing that Cronin probably intimated to them, hey, you're including a Warriors pick, top 4 protected. That's probably going to be in the 20s. Your pick in 6 years, well, what's that going to be? Tatum will be 31, Brown will be 32. They're still going to be a very good ball club, most likely. So that pick's not likely to be very good. So I'm guessing he's like, hey, yes, it's 2 picks, but these are 2 picks in the 20s. We need a little more than probably Brogdon and Al Horford, as I'm guessing, and maybe some other whatever pieces to make it work.
Well, so there was a rumor, and I don't know how substantiated this was, but there was a rumor that the Clippers had offered their 2 picks unprotected, and I don't know who. I'm guessing the 2 picks and then just like filler, and that was.
I don't believe Terrence Mann was in that.
No, I don't think so either. And I don't remember who reported it, because somebody was. I heard that rumor was essentially that it was a done deal, and then Cronin took it back to Boston, and that's when they threw in Williams. So, right. But I just want to say, yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's more movable pieces. What Portland was going to get from the Clippers, and I've just, like I said, I've been at this event. I've preciously little scanning of what's gone on, but I'm guessing it was pieces we really didn't want and probably couldn't continue to move to keep this asset train going. The picks we got from Boston with Boston and Golden State aren't as good. They are first-round picks. Maybe you use those later just as something for a trade. But the pieces you get, Brogdon and Williams, are infinitely tradable, where if we got back, say, Powell and Batum or Covington or whatever it was, ex-Blazers coming back,
they're not worth anything.
They probably wouldn't want to be here, but what's the market for them? Very, very little compared to Brogdon and Williams. So that's where the value from the Celtics side in terms of what we got, I believe, was. It's more tradable assets, not how good the picks would be, because the Clippers picks likely in the future will be better than what we got.
Probably, yeah. No, well, you know what though? I think the Golden State pick is. I didn't come up with this term. I think it actually was Sean Hyken that used this term, but I also agree with him. He said the Golden State pick is sneakily good because Golden State is like a mixed bag. They're mostly old. Draymond's already hurt. They're saying he might miss the first month of the season. They didn't even do that well last year. They were 44-38. I think they were like 17th in the league or something. I mean, that's not amazing. I don't think they're going to be a lottery team unless they suffer some significant injuries, but they might. You never know. Curry is, he could be in or out. You never know with Curry. He could get injured. Klay Thompson, same thing. They haven't done that well, since they won the championship. So I don't know. It's kind of an intriguing pick because it might end up being, I wrote this whole, and that was kind of one of the things I mentioned when I did a recording earlier today, was I did this whole breakdown comparing what we got to, okay, what was the absolute best trade that Miami could have done? And was what we got better than their best trade? And even if Miami had unlocked their 2024 pick and we had traded them Dame, that pick would have been terrible. Like 30th or 29th or something like that. That Golden State pick could be decent. Like maybe depending on injuries.
Well, injuries and really age. As you get older, your production starts to decline just a little bit. So you have to try harder. You're more likely to have injuries, and you're trying harder. So now that starts to multiply in terms of likelihood. And it's a number of older players. It's Dre, Clay, and Steph are all on the wrong side of early 30s.
Well, and Gary Payton too. Gary Payton's not young and has an injury history.
No, he's not young, and Chris Paul is a backup. It's like he's ancient.
Yeah, their whole team. I mean, with the exception of Moody and Kuminga, and Wiggins is, I don't know, how old's Wiggins now? I'm not even sure.
Maybe around 30 now, 29, 30. He's been in the league, it seems like a long time, but he came in really young. So I don't know. I'm
28. Wiggins is 28.
Okay. So it's an older team, certainly. It's a small team that is likely to get, beat up on a little bit. So you're right. It could be. Most likely it's, I would say, low 20 to 22, 19 to 22, somewhere in there. But it could fall. You end up at the end of a lottery and you hope that they don't get lucky and you end up with maybe a pick, 12 to 14 or whatever. And we may end up with more because, with Brogdon, I think one of the more likely places he might go, Miami could use him. I don't think he'll go there. Toronto could use him, but, Masai's going to want to give up a 2030 second round pick for him and nothing else.
I'm totally done with that guy. I'm totally done with that dude.
Chicago might be the team.
Chicago's interesting
because they have a salary they can dump, and if they dump that salary, you would think that's going to cost more. They're going to have to include more coming back. One of the picks they can give up is Portland's own pick, so it really doesn't cost them a whole lot for that one. And if they give up one more and maybe a young player, I'd love it to be Patrick Williams. I don't think Brogdon's going to get him that. But if you say, well, if we're taking on Ball's contract and we ship you back, Keegan Murray or whatever, some young talent that we have, or I don't know how that would work out. We don't have a lot that's available, but something else to add. I'm wondering how close we could get to that, or maybe include one of a future pick that we have and protect it out a little bit, with multiple layers of protection.
Well, so first of all, I know there's been some. Well, so you never really told me though. So do you like the trade? Like, do you think this was a good trade for Jrue Holiday?
Yes, given who I think was going to make offers for him, yes, I think it is, because I still don't think it's done. I think you're going to get pieces for at least Brogdon. Now, it might not be a lot. The demand for him won't be anything like what it was for Jrue, but Jrue was more than Dame. Brogdon will be. You're not going to get a lot. Maybe you get a player and a protected pick or something like that, which with Chicago, if we take the salary of Ball to make that work, maybe we get a little something else. And then you're probably about done because Ball will be untradeable, but you picked up another couple of assets. And if you can get a young player out of that, great. That's what you're trying to do. I think Williams might stay because due to his physical ailments, backup center works pretty well for him. And you go look at the numbers. When you start looking at the numbers defensively of what he did last year, the year before, it's very close to what the defensive player of the year from Memphis did
Jaren
last
Jackson.
year.
Yeah, I mean,
Jaren
his
Jackson.
problem is not that he's a good player. He just can't stay healthy, at all.
Right.
He's
And
constantly
he's
hurt.
got knee issues, but he's got great timing, great instincts, incredible length. He's a backup place is probably pretty good for him. His body isn't going to take 30, 32 minutes a night, but if you can get 16 out of him, well, hey, that's gravy. And he'd be one of the better backup bigs in the league. Defensively, he's tremendously going to help your second unit of whoever that is, Shaden and well, I don't know that it's finished yet, but
That's the problem. That's the problem.
We don't know.
So, real quickly, so I know there's some questions around Brogdon's health. I've been doing some research. So first of all, the main reason why, so he was basically traded. I mean, he was part of an initial trade where Boston was sending him to the Clippers for Morris and for, I believe, the 30th pick in this last draft. But it did say draft assets, so I don't know if that was it, but that was what they were going to get. And that was all part of the Porzingis trade. The reason why it fell through is that there were some concerns about his health. He hurt his arm. I think he right. damaged a ligament in his arm. And he was going to fly out, and the Clippers were going to look at him, and Boston was just like, we don't have time. Sorry, we're going to have to redo this trade. So they didn't have time for it to fully go through the process.
They had to get Porzingis in. There was a deadline. They had to meet with him. They couldn't wait. The Clippers were going to have to waive the physical,
and they didn't want to do that. Yeah, so it fell apart.
My understanding is that has healed.
Yeah, so this was the report from just a few days ago. The Celtics president of basketball operations, Brad Stevens, said Tuesday that Brogdon is completely healthy heading into training camp. It was reported that Brogdon may need off-season surgery to repair a partial tendon tear in his right elbow forearm, but he was ultimately able to clear the issue on his own. I don't know what that means, and should be full go for training camp. There was also concern that Brogdon had grown disgruntled with the organization after nearly being traded, but the point guard appears to have put that issue behind him as well. So from this report, he's healthy. And then just from a few days ago, the LA Clippers are reportedly in the hunt for defensive stalwart. Stalwart, I think they're talking about. They were talking about Jrue, but they have continued to engage the Celtics in trade talks for Brogdon throughout the offseason. After a deal surrounding Brogdon and Kristaps Porzingis fell apart, the organization has worked to repair the relationship. Okay, so that's not really. And then this article said. Yes, this one wasn't even really that helpful. But yeah, so the Clippers are still interested in him, and supposedly he's healthy. So, I mean, I would think he should. He's the reigning sixth man of the year, and he's a good player.
He's a sixth man of the year. There's going to be some value there for him. He's 30 years old. It's not like he's, an old player. He's had some very good years. I think it's between the Clippers and Chicago, and I'm probably leaning Clippers. You never know. Utah still could. They're just not in love with Sexton, and for whatever reason, things keep coming out of there that they would like something else. And who knows what you would get from them, but I think probably Clippers won, Chicago, and somebody else might come in. I think New Orleans could probably still use him. Miami could use him. There's a lot of teams that could use him, and that's one of the big things that I like about these trades that Joe has done is he has created leverage when he had none. He had very little with Dame. He had a ton with Jrue. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness! And then out of the players he got from that trade, he still has some. He has players that other teams want that are competing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, the super elite, but the ones that are like, hey, we could get into the playoffs, or we could win a round, or maybe even win 2 rounds. That's who's looking at Brogdon and Williams. Well, that's over half the league would have some interest in that
You
because
know,
of Williams' defensive ability, and Brogdon's not a slouch.
I think it's interesting though because that trade that fell through with the Clippers, I think it kind of gives an incorrect perception of his value because to me it seemed like Boston was in a hurry to get that trade done. They just wanted to get something for him to toss into the Porzingis trade. That seems like so little value. Like a crappy first round pick and a like salary filler. That seems so low for a
You're right. You're absolutely right. I think it was so hustled, and Boston needed it to get done, that the Clippers didn't feel like they probably had to give up a lot. So Boston didn't have leverage with that. It's who has leverage, and Cronin for the second time has it. He has desirable assets, and that's what. So I think you're not going to get a ton more, but I think you would get more than an expiring and a number 30 pick. I
bad
think you
pick.
you
Yeah.
could get something a little better. It's not going to be a lot better, but I think it'll be a little better. And then you go on. Then I think probably that line of assets, if you diagram this out, that will probably be done. I don't think you're going to get a tradable asset
No. Yeah, I
with
agree.
Brogdon. You're going to get some
Filler.
type of salary filler, maybe a young player that, like almost like a Kamara type, just a flyer, and then either heavily protected or pick from somebody that's going to be very good. So it's going to be a later round pick.
And
But
that's
that
fine,
that's
right? Like that's just
that's
more.
fine. I mean,
If we could get one of those picks from the Clippers, I would be ecstatic. Like just one of their later picks, like 29, 28 or 30, I would be thrilled.
those
Because
are valuable picks.
here's
Those
the
are
other
valuable
thing.
picks.
The other thing is, I caution people to use the Clippers trade that fell through as a bar for his value because 2 months ago, 3 months ago, whenever that was, the landscape has drastically changed because of Dame going to Milwaukee and Jrue going to the Celtics. Because there still exists an arms race that is going on because of Joe Cronin. And we just happen to have
Certainly in the Eastern Conference, absolutely.
another weapon that teams need. And I still look at the Sixers, I still look at the Bulls, I still look at the Heat as needing more firepower. The Heat especially, my God, they are in a bad way. I don't care what Heat fans say. I think they know it now. What's funny? After the Bucks trade, they were still kind of like, well, this is ridiculous. We could have done a better deal, blah, 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 blah. Not now after this, they're not. If you go on to like the Heat subreddit, it is mostly Heat fans going, well, I hate Cronin, but I got to give it to him. They've actually come around because they're like, damn, that's a good haul. Like that's better than what we could have done. And so that speaks volumes because these are the people that were clinging to the last strand of hopium that we were terrible and we were stupid and we were doing a bad thing, and now they're like, wow, that's a good haul. So I still think Brogdon is going to get dealt. I think there's still a demand. I think people are still panicking.
Well, yes, I should be in the car tomorrow from around 5 till 1. So,
That's
I'm
when it'll
expecting
happen.
somewhere. Yeah.
That's when it'll happen. Yeah, you know what? Just for like the people that listen to this podcast that we're asking to do it, I'll bring up the trade machine real quick. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this.
Well, and while you're doing that, thank you to the people that we've received comments from. Some on the some something, and The comments have been very positive. We appreciate that. I understand that my technically disabled right now, but I do have a microphone. I do have a camera that has been delivered. I've gotten the note. So when I get back home, that should be better on my end. I apologize that I'm just, on this phone. We're making do with what we had. But we appreciate the positivity we've received. That's been great. And we're working on being able to do, things that can pop up on the screen, showing trade machine things, showing some different graphics. Just that is neither one of our that's not our strong.
Okay. So this is it's covering us up. So if you can see it, hopefully people can see it. It's covering up our faces for the time being. But we'll give it a shot. So you can't see this, but let's just say no. I don't believe it took Fanspo a few days for the Lillard trade to work. So I don't.
They were a little behind.
They're a little bit behind. So what we'll have to do is essentially a 3-team trade, building in Boston. But I think if it was the Clippers, you'd have. Let's see here. Okay,
you're including Boston.
Yeah, I have. Teams? Yeah, I have to include Boston, or otherwise I don't have Brogdon to play around with. So, so you send Jrue to the Celtics. You send Williams to us. I don't think Williams is going to be traded. We'll see. I mean, I guess it would just depend on what people offer, right?
Well, but I think of the players you're keeping, Brogdon doesn't really have a spot here.
No,
Williams
he doesn't. Yeah, no, Williams would step right in as the backup center, and that's perfect. I don't know why Fanspo thinks that Boston doesn't have its 2028 pick, because it won't let me trade the 2029, which is what we got. So I don't. Whatever.
So I have heard this before, that there's something about that it on some of these trade checkers that it won't convey, but I can't believe.
They just have somebody has it. Someone else has it apparently in their system. For some reason, the 2028 pick does not exist in their system. I don't know why.
I'm guessing Brad Stevens and Joe Cronin know where that pick is and who owns it.
Yeah. Okay, so Brogdon makes $22.5 million, and because the trade's been completed, we can't send anything out with him. So here's what the Clippers have. So the original trade was Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris makes $17.1 million, which would be about 5.4 short. Plumlee makes 5. I don't think he's tradable.
Is that
it has to be
125%?
Yeah, it has to be 100. It has to
for the Clippers.
I don't think it would actually be Morris. If you go for like Batum and Covington, I don't think they're going to care at all about Covington, honestly. I feel like he barely played for them. If you did Batum and Covington, that puts you at 23.4. I think we can eat a little bit of extra salary coming our way.
We have a little over $7 million below the luxury tax, so we have some room.
So here's the question. If it was their 2028 first, Batum and Covington, is that enough?
Boy, how many years are left on Batum and Covington?
1. They're both expirings. They're both expirings. Yeah.
Well, in that case, yeah, I'd like a young player out of that, and I don't know what they have. Just to draft 5 years from now or 4.5 is Brogdon would be the best guard on their team, I think.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem like it's enough, because Batum and it's not that Batum and Covington couldn't play somewhere, but they don't have a role here, really.
Yeah.
You're not going to play them over the young players. So, but I don't see a big market for them somewhere else. So you're getting them and just having to eat them and hope you can move them at some point to someone by the trade deadline for a second round pick. I mean, that's going to be about it.
So you could do Covington, Terrence Mann, Brandon Boston Jr., and that unprotected pick. I don't know how married the Clippers are to Mann, so it's like kind of hard to tell. That's a lot, though.
It seems like they covet him quite a bit.
Okay, so that might be too rich. So if you take out Mann, So Boston makes 1.8 million.
Well, wait a minute. Can't we just go the Miami route and offer them Murray, Ryan Rupert, and some draft picks in the 2040s? That should be good enough.
Exactly. Yep. The Miami strategy. Um, I mean,
But for Kawhi Leonard, I mean, not
yeah,
for
exactly.
anyone else to have done.
So I don't know. I mean, you could go. You could do Morris, Boston. That puts you at 18.9. I don't know if they're like Kobe Brown. I don't really know much about Kobe Brown, but that's still about a million short.
Well, and now you're getting to too many players.
Yeah, now you're getting into a lot of players. So it's like I don't know. I mean, if the pick is the valuable thing,
that's what makes Chicago attractive because of Ball's contract.
yeah. Okay, so let's try Chicago. So
It's one player, and then you throw in a rookie scale guy and a pick or our own pick or something else,
so
and maybe we send a player back like Murray, especially if we were getting a. There's any way we could get Williams out of that? Well, we're okay. We'll send you back a player that fits at least that spot, and
I just don't think we could. I don't think we can match it because here's the problem. Williams makes just under 10 million, and
Ball's like
Murray only makes just under 3. Ball's at 20.4.
right. So that's 30, 22, 25. Well,
I mean, we just can't. Yeah,
that's close enough because we'd be taking back about 5 million more than we're sending out, and we do have the room under the luxury tax to do that. Because I think you would be within 125%.
So here's the question: If you sent, you can't. Never mind. Actually, Williams and the two Williamses, Robert Williams on our team and Patrick Williams, make very similar money. Robert Williams makes 11.5. Patrick Williams makes 9.8. So, I mean, would you want to give up? Like, if you were really looking for a young player, I don't know.
Part of this comes down to how much Patrick Williams can play small forward, and I believe someone on the boards I asked that question might have been
good. It didn't look good.
It didn't look good. Now he hadn't played a lot there, so it looked like it was a fairly small sample size. But there was also someone had done I believe a YouTube video outlining what an underrated defender he was and talking about his strong points and how he was learning and they talked about his flaws, but they said they thought he could be one. They thought he was one of the more underrated defensive players in the league. The stats don't show that. The numbers don't show that. But I have just had that feeling from an eyeball test that he has some room to grow. He's already I think he shot 42% from 3 last year. In the video, I believe they talked about his hips maybe being a little tight, that he would be pressed on the perimeter to match up with some quicker small forwards, but once into the lane and under the hoop, that his verticality, his leaping ability, and his length really had him in good stead in terms of being a good defender. So I don't know. I've more hoped that he could play small forward than seeing that he is able to or not. And it looked from the numbers, it looks like it was a pretty small sample size. Mostly he has played an undersized power forward that gets away with it due to strength and length. So I like his potential. And a lot of this goes back to our friend D69, who identified him back in high school when no one knew his name and thought that he was going to be a breakout candidate. He ended up being drafted number 4. I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was because I think he and Barnes came from the same place, and then John Butler followed them. So there was 3 guys there in a row at Florida State, maybe, that that made it into the NBA that weren't household names early that he found that just started climbing the ranks, and by the time the draft rolled around they were 40, 50 spots above where they had been projected to start the year.
Well, so
So I'm probably a little bit biased by that.
I just don't think we can make it work financially. But here's the question:
I'm really
like,
not.
how much do the picks matter to you? Because like, if it was Lonzo Ball and Dalen Terry, who makes $3.3 million for Brogdon, and then they send us back our original pick, and then like maybe a 2028 pick unprotected, is that enough value?
They would have to for taking on Ball's salary, because
Exactly. Yeah.
we're sending them who would be a starter
Mm-hmm.
for a player, a salary dump, who likely to may not play again,
Yeah.
likely to may not be able to play again. So so there has to be something given up for taking on his salary dump, and then something given up for the player that you're acquiring that's going to be a starter. So
Like, I don't know. I might do it, honestly, just because. So, like, to me, the cost of taking Ball is getting our pick back, which unlocks all of our picks. So, if we wanted to later, we could then trade picks. And then, essentially, what you're getting is a 2028 unprotected pick for Brogdon, which to me is really valuable because the Bulls are old and really not that good. So, they could very well be not very good in 5 years,
yeah, that's fair, because it's the value of some of these picks. That's why
you're diversifying, right?
Isn't that valuable, but you got other pieces. It's why the Miami picks were never that valuable, and not because Butler won't be old by then. It's because of the way they run their franchise. It's incredibly well run. It's not Minnesota, or Detroit, or someone like that. They're going to rebound. It's a destination spot. It's Miami. It's South Beach. They're going to be fine. So those picks don't have nearly the cachet that, say, the Clippers or the Bucks do when maybe their players get older. Milwaukee's not a destination spot. The Clippers could be a little bit, but historically they haven't been. It's because they're second fiddle to the Lakers. So those picks just carry more weight. Chicago's, I can see that being a better pick down the road. So I would be okay with that.
Because I'm looking at Philly and I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing.
No, they don't.
I'm not seeing the matching salary, and they have one pick. They have like their 2029. So
and Philly would love this to be a three-way,
yeah,
and harden to the Clippers, but I'm not sure how. What's Portland going to get out of that? Okay, Portland's going to have to get something to facilitate from Philly, because they're screwed right now.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I don't see an option for them. So I think the Sixers are out. So just looking at the East, right? Like, I don't think the Cavs would happen. They have enough guards. I don't see the Knicks. The Nets, maybe. I mean, I don't know what the Nets are doing. That's the problem. I don't know what they're doing. Like, they're not trying to lose because they don't have their own picks. So it's like, I don't know.
They're not doing anything to try and win either. And what was their record after Durant was traded?
It was bad.
I believe they were the number 6 seed, but it was bad when it was Bridges.
Really
Bridges
bad.
put up some big numbers, but Bridges and Johnson and Thomas and all those, whoever was there, it was not good. They were well under 500, if memory serves. So are they going to try and be better or not? They certainly have some assets, some of the picks that they got from Phoenix, which I'd love to have another one of those.
Yeah, I mean, here's the question. They could do Dinwiddie, who's an expiring, and a young guy, like Clowney, and that would work. They could do Dinwiddie, and I mean, I don't know how much they would really care, right? Like, you could ask for Dinwiddie, a young guy, and a pick. That seems kind of expensive, though, right? I don't know if they would go for that. Brooklyn's, is one of the more attractive options because they have young players and they have a ton of picks. So, like, I would love to go after Brooklyn, but I don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's where maybe we see one of our young players back. It's like, okay, if we're getting a young player from you, we're getting it probably because it's better than the ones we have, but we'll send you one back to so you have a young asset piece. You've got someone who might, you know, develop into something, and it's not just such a bare cabinet.
Yeah, I don't know. Brooklyn's interesting. The Bulls are interesting. I don't think the Hawks definitely don't need guards. I don't even want to look at the Raptors. The Raptors, Masai is so frustrating to deal with that I don't even think it's worth it. The Pacers don't need. I mean, Pacers already had him, and I don't think it ended very well with him. So that's one reason why I don't really want to bring him around our team is because I'd heard bad things about Brogdon on the Pacers, and then he hasn't really left Boston in the best terms. Like I've heard that there was a possibility he might hold out, that he didn't really want to come back. So there's definitely some concerns with him about, character.
And I haven't really heard the why those are, but yes, that seems to be the impression is that maybe hasn't always left on the best of terms.
Yeah. And
But
then
I mean, who knows?
don't see him going to the Wizards. Don't see him going to the Magic or the Hornets. Definitely not the Hornets. Not the Pistons. Not the Nuggets. Grizzlies, I don't know. I mean, they don't have Jaw for a little while, but
Pelicans.
Pelicans, Kings, Suns definitely can't do it. You already talked about the Clippers. I don't even want to help the Warriors at this point. We got their pick. Let them tank.
No,
I don't.
You do not want to help the Warriors.
Don't want to help the Warriors. Don't really want to help. The Lakers. Timberwolves. I don't know. Timberwolves are interesting. What do they have? So they got an old Mike Conley. Let me remove the cap holds. There's this setting for some reason. The default on Fanspo is that it shows cap holds, and I don't know why it does that. So let's see. Kyle Anderson is expiring, $9.2 million. They just don't have enough salary. They don't have anybody. I mean, they could send out. Oh yeah, that would be interesting. They send us Mike Conley, and no, they don't have any picks though. Utah has all their picks. They're worthless. Yeah. Okay, so the Timberwolves are not an option.
Not a trade partner. Well, and I think somewhere, and we could guess all night, but somewhere I think he's going to end up going. It might be fairly soon, just so they go into media day fairly clean. Doesn't have to. He could be here for a little bit, but do you want him taking minutes away from?
I don't.
Ant and Scoot? No. So it seems like you would try and, not that Joe hasn't been busy, but tomorrow's kind of his day, and then Tuesday, or if it's tomorrow, whatever day it is, and I'm messed up on the days. Whatever day is media day, he's probably not going to do it. So does he do it early in the morning and then actual day it is? I don't know, but it feels like that would the one that would be done fairly quickly. Find out who you've got, and then you're set, and you go into training camp, and it's a new era. It's a whole new chapter for the Blazers, all the way around, regardless of what happens. Maybe trade deadline with either Williams or some writer had suggested Grant. Eventually, I believe that that's probably true, but this is definitely a new look with just an athletic, fun, vibrant. I mean, Scoot reminds me so much personality wise of Magic when he came into the league. Just this massive smile on his face, and he just looks like he's having the time of his life. And that will rubs off on teammates. It's a natural leadership trait. Mm-hmm. Players gravitate towards that, especially younger players looking for some leadership. And I understand he's really young himself, but you either have that or you don't. I've seen some pretty young people take some amazing leadership steps. Ayton is thrilled. He's a kid in a candy store to be here. Now, that may rub off pretty soon. We don't know. Grant just seems pretty chill about the whole thing. It's interesting that Matisse being an Aaron Goodwin, is Goodwin saying anything to him about, is he trying to sour him on anything, or is he just not saying anything to him at all? And Matisse is just being chill. I mean, so it'll be interesting to see how some of these things, get kicked off to start the season, but I'm as excited as can be for a team that will win less than 30 games, which sounds almost diametrically opposed to what you would expect, but I am.
Yeah, I think I think that it's tricky, just because they have so many guards right now. I'm just really not sure. Like, I'm hoping that they can find a home for Brogdon, because I think that I just don't. I don't think you want to. I've heard bad things about his character in the past, and it's already going to be tight enough trying to find minutes for Scoot, Simons, and Sharp. And I just don't see. He comes in, he gets unhappy because of his minutes, and then we lose leverage.
I think we're discussing something we're not going to have to worry about too much.
I think you're probably right. You know what I think is going to happen? I think he's going to go to the Clippers. I think Joe's already been talking to the Clippers.
It seems the most natural fit. It's just figuring out what it's going to be, what's going to come here. Does that, if it is Morris, does he just get bought out? Does he just like, hey, you're our backup 4. You're going to get maybe you're going to get 15, 18 minutes a game, and we'll try and trade you at the deadline for a second round pick. I mean, that's about it.
I mean, if I had to choose players, like I would actually rather have Batum and Covington. I mean, I would cut Covington because I don't think anybody wants him, and I'd keep Batum as a mentor to repair. Like,
that is the natural fit here. I mean, how old is Batum? And Batum's been in the league so long, you think he's like 38, but he's 30.
He's 34. He's 34, and Covington's 32. But Covington is completely washed.
He's an old 32.
But
Batum is, can still bring it in some short stretches. He'd be a nice mentor for repair. He has some length. He can handle the ball a little bit. He can play some defense still a little bit. But you're going to get those frustrating nights where he just completely disappears, even when he can do some things on the court. And that is what it is. But if it's an expiring deal, then it's probably the cost of doing business. You can't it's not just going to keep getting tradable pieces to keep going and going. Eventually it's going to come to an end. And I think it does with Brogdon, and that's it.
I think you take those two players, because those two players are basically, they're slightly more money than Brogdon. So you take Batum, you take Covington, you cut Covington, keep Batum. Maybe you flip Batum at the trade deadline. Maybe some contender wants him. Otherwise, you let him mentor, repair, and you get one of their 2 picks. And to me, maybe he's worth more than that. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm just not seeing a lot of options, and I don't really want to. I just don't think it's a good idea to bring him in, because we don't have minutes. Otherwise, actually, you know what? The alternative is you bring him in and you trade Simons. You take, see if Simons' market is different now than it was 3 months ago when people thought we had to trade him with the pick. Because maybe Simons brings you back a young small forward. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who's out there, but
I think Simons is going to be the face of the franchise, at least for the first 3 or 4 months, till Scoot gets his feet wet. See what you have in Shaden. Ant plays out his backside,
and then maybe move him.
The trade deadline, someone looks at this and goes, "Holy wow! Look what he did when he didn't have to share it with Dame. He just went nuts." And his value goes up, because right now his value, is it any higher than Tyler Hero's?
Hard to say. I really don't know. I mean, we don't really know what Joe was told when he was trying to shop Simons in the pick, and we have no idea what Hero's value was. We don't even know if they shopped him. There was rumors, but we never really heard anything. So it's so hard to quantify like what Hero would have brought back, because we don't know what teams were willing to offer for him. So, I mean, essentially, and here's the thing. I know some people were like, why didn't Joe take Milwaukee's offer and see if Miami would beat it? But if you read Woj's article, Milwaukee was very clear that the offer had to stay a secret or they would pull out because they did not want, if it fell through, they did not want Jrue to find out that they were talking about trading him. So
right.
It never.
He's a big part of the part of the team, not to the level of Dame, but certainly to. He wasn't just a guy passing through. He's just the consummate professional. He's a great teammate. He plays both sides of the ball. So I get why they didn't want anyone to find out about that, and for good reason. And Joe kept it all in his little notebook with Dame in blue, I guess.
It's weird though. Like I was listening to. Because some people are like, well, we didn't get a young guy, right? Well, I mean, other than Ayton, but Ayton could have been a part of any trade. And, I mean, it's not true. We got Kamara. But what's funny to me is I was listening to Mike Richmond, and he was talking about, one of the main things, that the selling point was for the Heat was that they had Hawkes and Jovic, and those are young guys on rookie scale contracts. And it was funny because Mike, I don't know if he'd like preemptively thought this or if he it just kind of came to him during the podcast, but he was like, man, we already have so many guys that are young on rookie scale contracts because we have, I mean, if you look at it, we've got Scoot, Shaden, Chris Murray, Jabari Walker, Tumani Kamara, and Ryan Rupert. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
6.
Is there 6?
No, I think it's more than that. It's more
4,
than that.
5. It's 6. So you've got Henderson, Sharp, Murray, Walker, Kamara, Rupert. So we have 6 extremely young guys. Scoot's 19, Sharp's 20, Murray is what, 22? Kamara, I don't know. Spotrac doesn't give age.
He's 23. He's 23.
And Rupert is 19. So
19.
We have a ton of young guys that are and a lot of them are these projects. I mean, Rupert, Kamara, even Murray to an extent, Walker. I mean, these are guys that haven't really figured things out yet. So wait, we're supposed to add Jovic and Hawkes to that, and to me, Jovic and Murray are very similar. They're just kind of like stretch forwards that don't really rebound and don't. I mean, Murray actually might be a better defender than Jovic. So
I think Murray's a better defender. Jovic is better ball handler, better
distributor.
creator, distributor.
Yeah,
probably a better shooter at this point. He's he's not our Murray is not the same shooter as his brother in Sacramento.
No,
at least not yet.
Not even close.
So you're right. There are a lot of young contracts, but that's what gives you the ability to take on some of the contracts like a Ball, because that's $20 million coming off your cap in a couple of years when most of these rookies will still be on a rookie salary scale. You're going to have some free agent dollars to do something with, where you now know what these rookies, or maybe you have a better idea of what these rookies can contribute, what they can do, and you go out and sign your Buck Williams to go with all the young guys while you can, and then you figure out who you're going to have to pay and who you don't, and who you might have to move, and you're a couple years down the road. I mean, the oldest player is going to be Ayton at 27. I mean, that you're just getting into their prime. Scoot 21. I mean, these are going to be young guys who will have a chance to mature fairly quickly and could have a decently long window if they develop as you hope, or at least one or two of them develop as you hope, and you catch a break here or there. I mean, there's some luck involved. No injuries, no 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 cancers in the locker room. These guys, they're kids, they're developing. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. But that's also what makes it such an exciting time, because there's so much potential, which can be a dangerous thing. But right now, there's a lot of unicorns and rainbows to be excited about.
Yeah. We're almost at an hour, Larry, and my dog is telling me that she's angry that we have not gone on a walk. But I wanted to leave you with one thought that I kind of was pondering earlier today. Joe Cronin is putting together one heck of a war chest where if he wanted to, I would not say in the next year or two or even 3 years, because I don't think he wouldn't be going after somebody like Embiid. But if a star became available in the next 3 or 4 or even 5 years, we have a bunch of draft picks. We got picks. We got young guys. I think and I don't even know who that player would be. It's kind of hard to say. I'm not talking about really the generation of right now with like Embiid's and Giannis's and
right.
It's the next. It would be the next group. Yeah, it would be the next group.
And that's why Chicago's attractive, because getting our own pick back only positively augments that. It gives you some certainty in terms of what you actually have. That's pretty darn attractive. Yes, if you could get an extra one, great, but having control over your own is a big deal.
Yeah, and so also, if you were able to get a second pick from them, I mean, what we've done, instead of just putting all our eggs in the Miami basket and saying like, well, we've got 3 picks from Miami and maybe one more from a hero trade, we've got a pick and 2 swaps from Milwaukee. We've got a pick from Golden State. We've got a pick from Boston, and then if we are able to trade Brogdon, maybe we'll get a pick from the Clippers. Maybe we'll get a pick from Chicago. Who knows? But you're not just going all in on one team possibly falling on its face. You're going in on maybe one of 4 different teams, or maybe 2 of 4 different teams falling on their face. So that's the way to play it. You're not putting all your money on black, right? You're spreading it around.
Are you talking about diversified assets?
Yeah.
This is music to my ears.
Yeah, diversify that portfolio, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So
no, it's a great point. I mean, a sporting and financial analogy, which of course that's my day job, but you're absolutely correct. If this team doesn't do well, or this team does do well, but maybe this one doesn't, where Miami, they do well, that's all you've got.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree. You've got, and he is building that. I mean, it's the future looks bright, because as some of these young players develop and you do know what you have, now you've got some capital to go out and do something. And Joe strikes me as somebody who would actually swing for a fence versus go dumpster diving like Neil seemed to love to do. And once in a while he would hit on that, and that was great to get, somebody you didn't maybe pay much for that contributed above what it cost you, but that's not winning you a title. Maybe that's a role player guy. But you need difference maker, and we're going to need a big man difference maker, either at small forward or power forward down the road, that is going to put this team over the top. But I'm curious to see how Chauncey starts forming this, building this together. If he changes the offense a little bit, if he changes the defense, because he said he never had the pieces around him to do what he wanted to do. Well, he's got more of that now. Not all of them, but certainly more length, more athleticism, more shot blocking. There's a lot more for him to work with that looks like what he had in Detroit as a player than he's had in Portland as a coach.
True. Well, it's funny. The team seems to play a hell of a lot better when you don't have Dame there running his own brand of offense with no defense. I mean, when our team has actually been in summer league, or just with like the young guys, and we play a more aggressive type of defense and a more up-tempo sharing offense, ball movement, player movement, suddenly we are kind of pesky. We're hard to beat. we're beating teams that we don't have any business beating.
Look at the beginning of last year. What you just described is how the team started off playing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was involved. Everyone was hitting game winners except Dame. It was Grant. It was Hart. It was, there was Anthony hit one over Bridges. There was a number of people that were closing games. Everyone was more involved, and then they weren't. And it went more back to more ISO, a couple losses, and Dame felt like, and I don't fault him for, okay, I got to take this over. I got to save us. But it never worked. It never has worked, to a high enough level to, is it worked for, a game here or a series there? Great. But in terms of an actual team getting to close to that pinnacle, it hasn't worked. But they started off 10-3 with sharing the ball, pushing the pace, which was left over from the year before when it was, hey, Winslow, Hart, you get the rebound, you go. We're not looking for a guard. Push it.
Yeah, run the tempo.
First couple weeks of the season, and then it kind of went away.
Yep. Well, I'll say this. I know we need to wrap it up because we're in an hour now, but I'll say this just kind of as like a parting thought. It's sad seeing Dame go. It's it's a tough transition, but it was it was time. I mean, I'm thrilled that we got value because I'm going to be honest, I don't know if this value is there a year from now. If it took us another year to figure out, let's say we do move the third pick and Simons, and then a year from now we're like, nope, we still suck. We can't do it. We got to, Dame wants out. I don't know if this is there in a year. I really don't. So, clock was ticking. We were able to extract some really decent value. I was talking about this actually when I recorded something earlier. I'm curious what your thoughts are really quick. Last thing before we go. I know it's like easy to say that, but I just want to know. I just want to know, yes or no, what your opinion is. So I know people keep loving to compare this to the other blockbuster trades from over the years. So Gobert, Durant, Donovan Mitchell. We were never going to touch or come close to Gobert. That was never going to happen. And we weren't going to, and Durant wasn't going to happen either because there was not a Bridges that was available. It just wasn't going to happen. But if you look at what we got, and we haven't even, we don't even know if we're going to trade Brogdon yet. I think we came really close to Donovan Mitchell because they got Markkanen, they got Sexton, they got Abaji, and then they got 3 picks, and then I think a couple of swaps, all from Cleveland. So there's no diversification there. It's just all Cleveland. We got Ayton, we got Williams, we got Brogdon, we got Kamara, we got 3 picks and 2 swaps. And that's now. That's right now. That could change. That's close. I mean, Ayton and Markkanen.
Well, and if you look at how that has played out, Utah's kind of done with Sexton. There's a lot of chat out of Utah that they'd be just fine him moving on. So in terms of usable assets, certainly Markkanen has worked out. Absolutely. That home run. Your picks should be, I'm not sure what years they are, but Cleveland's a solid team. They're a playoff team. They might not be high picks, or the swaps. Who knows if that even happens. So in terms of how it graded out, well, it's okay. I mean, the picks are nice. The swaps are nice. Sexton didn't really work out. Markkanen really did. So 1-1 there. So yes, I think it is pretty close to. I think that's a pretty fair assessment in terms of what was available. Because yes, you weren't going to get the picks. What Minnesota did was that GM should be fired for that.
Yep.
But
yeah, we're never going to touch that. No one will ever touch that again. That's the unicorn. Okay, Larry, my dog is starting to tear stuff up, so it's time to take her for a walk, or she's going to start destroying my office. But thank you for joining through this ordeal on the road. I know hopefully you'll be back home soon. If something else happens, we'll try to figure out a way to get online. But in the meantime, thanks again for joining. People turning in, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Please leave comments.
We do appreciate the feedback, and we are working on many of the suggestions. We're trying to put that in place, and either we need to learn technically, graphically to be better, we're going to need some help. So
true. Very true.
The goal.
All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again to another episode of Blazer Metrics. And we'll be online again. There's tons to talk about. Media Day's coming, training camp, preseason, tons to talk about. So we will be back. Thank you for tuning in again, and we'll talk to you all later. Have a good night.
Good night.